Hello again and welcome to my channel. Thanks for being here for a study of the Fourth Christian Ecumenical Council, the Council of Chalcedon. If this is your first time here, a special warm welcome. Let me introduce myself. My name is Pat Pryor, and I teach on this channel about the history of religion and also spiritual movements. So if you're interested in those topics, I invite you to subscribe and ask for notifications, and also leave all your comments and questions. I try to answer them all. Besides Christianity, I also discuss a number of other religions, so I hope you'll check out some of the other playlists as well. Well, in the last video, I talked a bit about the Council of Ephesus and the teachings of a man named Nestorius, who was declared a heretic by those who were developing the doctrines that would eventually be called the Orthodox Christian teachings. His rival was a man named Cyril, and the disagreement was about the nature of Christ, what we call Christology. The controversy didn't end with Ephesus, and that's what I want to talk about today. What happened next? Well, next, a man named Eutychus began to teach that before the incarnation, Jesus had had two natures, but after the incarnation, he only had one. There was one Christ, one Son, one Lord. He said, I worship one nature, that of God made flesh and become man. But he also taught that Christ was born of a virgin and was both perfect God and perfect man. However, the flesh of Christ, he said, was not exactly like our human flesh. It wasn't ordinary human flesh, yet Christ was fully human. Now, his teachings seemed a bit confusing. However, it brought to the forefront the question of the genuine humanity of Christ, and it opened the possibility of an unbalanced emphasis on the divinity. Eutychus's opponent was a man named Theodoret of Cyrus. In 447, Theodoret began to write against this teaching that Christ's humanity and divinity formed one nature, that humanity had not really been derived from the Virgin, and that divinity suffered. That last, meaning that God the Father suffers. The Father somehow suffered during Christ's passion. And the various bishops, of course, took sides, and the eastern part of the empire was again in turmoil. So Eutychus was called before the Home Synod. That was a semi-permanent council of bishops at Constantinople. And because he wouldn't agree that Christ had two natures, he was excommunicated and deposed from his positions. So Eutychus and then two others, Dioscorus and Chrysophias. I love these Greek names, don't you? They now plotted to overthrow this decision. Eutychus' protest against the decision, which was supported by the Emperor Theodosius, was sent to Pope Leo in Rome. And in the meantime, Theodosius wanted to settle the matter by calling another council in Ephesus in 449, with Dioscorus presiding. When Pope Leo received the summons to the council, he excused himself, but said he would send a legate and provide them with letters to the emperor and to Flavian, who was the Patriarch of Constantinople, to the council, and to the monks in that city. He added that Attila and the Huns had thrown all of Italy into turmoil and that he needed to remain at home. Among the letters he sent was the now famous Tome to Flavian, in which Leo summarizes the Christology of the western part of the empire. And I'm going to quote some of it now, because it'll be used later by the Council at Chalcedon as part of the basis of their conclusions. So he said, "He who became man in the form of a servant is he who in the form of God created man. Thus, in the whole and perfect nature of true manhood, true God was born, complete in what belonged to him, that is, to God, and complete in what belonged to us." So the incarnation here is understood as stooping down, God coming down, and the Word still remaining omnipotent. The divine and the human natures existed in one person with no confusion or mixing. Each nature retained its natural properties so that the form of God did not abolish the form of the servant, and the form of the servant didn't diminish the omnipotence of the form of God. He went on to say, one and the same mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ, should be able both to die in respect of the one and not die in respect of the other, meaning that each of these natures had its own principle of operation and its own activity, but it didn't exercise them independently of the other nature or apart from the union. That union was permanent. Each form accomplishes in concert with the other what is appropriate to do. The Word performing what belongs to the Word, and the flesh carrying out what belongs to the flesh. And again, the Son of God is said to have been crucified and buried, though he suffered these things not in the Godhead itself. In the Godhead, the only begotten is co-eternal and equal with the Father, but he was crucified in the weakness of human flesh. Eutychus was called upon to acknowledge that he whom he knows to have been subject to suffering was a man with a body like ours, since denial of his true flesh is denial also of his bodily passion, which in their mind brought about the world's salvation. So the body, the physical body of Jesus, was important in that respect. So for Pope Leo, Eutychus deserved a verdict of condemnation. The Pope sent his representatives to the council, where they promptly presented their letters to Flavian. The council began August 8th, 449. Now the 42 bishops who had been part of the home synod that had excommunicated Eutychus were not allowed to participate, and Leo's letters were not read to the assembly. Eutychus was brought in and he gave his statement of faith, and again a request for Leo's letters to be read was denied. The minutes of the home synod were read, and as they were read, the bishops shouted, "Cut him in two who divides Christ." In other words, don't believe in two natures, but in the one nature that Eutychus was teaching. And with that, Eutychus was voted in as orthodox by 111 of the 130 votes available. Well, the next thing was the Dioscorus denounced Flavian and Eusebius, another important figure in Constantinople, and demanded their removal from office. An argument broke out among the bishops as to whether they could do this. And pretending that he was being attacked, Dioscorus shouted for the church doors to be opened. And when he did, in marched the provincial governor with the military police, followed by a motley crowd of monks, some Egyptian sailors, and what is called assorted tough guys. Well, Flavian escaped to a safe place, but Eusebius was arrested, and nobody was allowed to leave the church. The 170 bishops signed the official acts of the council. Most, I would think, supposedly for convenience, were induced to sign blank sheets of paper that would be filled in at a later time. The main business of the council was now complete. Eutychus had been restored, and his accusers, Flavian and Eusebius, deposed. Well, so far you've seen in my videos in the fight for orthodoxy, there have been false accusations, bribery, murder, and now a well-planned and successful coup. Well, informed of the events in Ephesus, Leo gathered a synod at Rome, Leo is the Pope, and annulled the proceedings of the council, and blaming Dioscorus as the chief culprit. He sent his protest to the emperor, to Flavian, and the clergy and the monks at Constantinople, demanding that a new council be held in the West to set things right. The council that I just described became known as the Robber Council. Pope Leo branded the Council of Ephesus a latrocinium, a band of robbers, and he refused to recognize Antonius, the new patriarch who had been selected for Constantinople. Well, the Emperor Theodosius II died in July of 450, and his elder sister Pulcheria seized power, and she married a senator named Marcian, which by association then made him the emperor. And they held the religious views that were the same as Pope Leo, and so they insisted upon a new council. So at Chalcedon, on October 8th, 451, the new council opened with recent estimates are about 350 bishops present. Legend holds that figure closer to 500. They assembled in the basilica there, and the interesting thing is that the representatives of each faction lined up on opposing sides of the aisles in the basilica facing one another. Well, a trial was held for Dioscorus. It lasted all day and well into the night. The final result was that all the bishops of the Robber Council confessed that they had been in error, and they asked for forgiveness. And Dioscorus was condemned for his actions. It then took actually another 5 sessions of the council and much cajoling by the imperial commissioners But finally, a committee of 12 men produced what became known as the definition of the Council of Chalcedon. And this is what it included. First, a preamble, and after that they presented the Creed of Nicaea, stating that it remained inviolate. This was the dogmatic foundation of the Christian faith. They also accepted the Creed of the Council of Constantinople, the First Council of Constantinople, as an authentic interpretation of the Nicene Creed. Now, these creeds I have presented in full in the appropriate videos if you haven't watched them yet, and I'm going in chronological order. So they accepted then the Council of Ephesus of 431 that had been led by Cyril, and Cyril's second letter to Nestorius, and the tome of Leo just produced, the basics of which I just read. With all this finally accomplished, the council went on to consider 30 disciplinary canons. And I end today with canon number 28, which would be in future one aspect of a major division, which up until this time had been the one Christian Orthodox Church, this group of proto-Orthodoxies. And it read as follows. It read that the fathers of the Council of Constantinople properly gave the primacy to the throne of Elder Rome, that is the city of Rome in Italy, because that was the imperial city. And being moved by the same intention, they now gave equal privileges to the most holy throne of New Rome, judging with reason that the city which was honored with the sovereignty and the Senate. So notice that the emperor is now in Constantinople. And so they believe that because the emperor and the Senate are there, and that city enjoys equal privileges with the elder royal Rome, it should also be magnified like her in ecclesiastical matters, being second after her. Thus, Constantinople was assigned a patriarchate comprising Turkey, Eastern Bulgaria, and Romania, giving it a territory equal to Antioch and Alexandria. And besides, it was declared as the see of the capital of the Eastern Empire, that is the bishopric that is superior in the Eastern Empire, to have equal privileges in ecclesiastical matters with the see, the bishopric of Rome, but occupying second place to Rome in honor. Well, the response from Rome, from Pope Leo, was immediate and clear. Peter was chosen to rule over all whom Christ also rules originally. Nor does Peter cease to preside over the whole church, for the stability which the rock himself was given by that rock, Christ, he conveyed also to his successors, and these successors are the bishops of Rome, because Peter was sent to the citadel of the Roman Empire, that thus the light of truth would reach the nations. Moreover, the authority of all Christian bishops is mediated from Christ through Peter and his successors, so that from him, as from the head, that is from Christ, his gifts should be conveyed to the whole body, so that whoever dares to secede from the foundation of Peter may know that he is excluded from the divine mystery. Through the most blessed Peter, chief of the apostles, the Holy Roman Church holds the principate over all the churches of the world. Well, you can see where this is going in the future, can't you? Putting this canon on the shelf for now, the emperor suggested that the faith statement of the council be accepted now, and the 28th canon held for later consideration. And it wasn't until the 6th century that the 28th canon was admitted into the official collections of the Greek East, and in 1274 by the Catholic West. Well, can we put this part of the faith debate to rest at last? Well, as with the Council at Nicaea, 125 years before, the definition of Chalcedon was not the end, but the intensification of the controversy. So I hope you can join with me next week as we move on to Council number 5, the Second Council of Constantinople. And we learned something about a movement called Monophysitism. Monophysitism. So I want to thank you again for watching these videos, learning about how the various religions came to their current positions can be eye-opening. Well, I hope that you liked this one. This week, as always, please be safe and well, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.